Hi colleagues, this is John Fischetti. I'm very pleased to be with you today, and I'd like to talk particularly to school principals and school leaders about the palette, the color wheel that they have in front of them as they paint the picture for their school about the designs that they would like to use to enable student success. Many of you have been well aware that the AITSL standards in Australia and virtually all the national standards around the world consider school leaders to be instructional leaders first and foremost. But some of the sub-indicators of that leadership set of criteria might actually be a bit naive in that they do not actually detail how hard it is for a school leader on the day-to-day to actually be in classrooms all the time doing walkthroughs or actually formal observations. Certainly that's a key part of it. But actually what the leader is the key motivator for change at the school level. And I'd like to just share with you these balls in the air, these colors in the color wheel with you today using the light board. So the first aspect of being the instructional leader is developing and rolling out the vision with your team for your school. And I'll define that under the new school operation that you might have seen in the first video in this series around the goals of learning and equity. I think too often in the past we've motivated for learning but forgotten we're actually leaving students out, maybe at the lower or the upper end, or students who are just quiet in the middle. That total student engagement toward their learning is our goal as instructional leadership. But we have to actually do this around an equity mantra, and that is that we need to differentiate for every child and get learning right for them. So establishing that vision is crucial, or your instructional leadership strategies will fall on looking like just a bunch of things to do rather than the direction we're going. And these are school designs that we're taking on board to enable success. Now this isn't all the jobs of a principal. These are those of the instructional leader to put in place the vision and to enable the school designs that will allow for success. Many of you are part of schools where there's pockets of great things happening individually, great teachers who are doing great things, but they really haven't added up necessarily to a whole school design. So let's look at what's at your fingertips as a school leader. I think most of you, and properly so, are using pedagogy to drive your change process. Pedagogy is the stuff we have students do all day and how we teach and learn for that. So the major color in our wheel is the color of pedagogy in your school. And I think for some of you, you've seen that some teachers have a philosophical view of pedagogy, others a more practical view, but pedagogy drives it. But other schools are using technology to drive their change. And technology would be the chance for us to use some of the new and old tools that allow us to motivate change. Technology is not just what we've done in the past, but particularly the advent of artificial intelligence and virtual reality that allow us to see that we might replace didactic teaching in the next 10 years because of the ability for artificial intelligence to replace that for us. Some of you are part of schools that have a major renovation and are using space in new ways, or you're due for one, or you wish you'd get the funding for one. And that space is driving new kind of learning opportunities for kids to be not only seated in better kind of chairs, but the whole classroom to be structured in a much more dynamic, engaging way. Rather than the teacher in front, it's a learning community that's being built. So many schools are using pedagogy, technology, or space, but rarely is the leader seeing all of those three interacting. But actually, they're not the only ones, because we have to also think about the era of support. This is support for student success that might come in extra tutoring, extra support for students who are ahead in terms of meeting their obligations in the curriculum, support in pastoral care to get through issues that they might be dealing with at home, or support just negotiating growing up in a massively complex society where there's double standards coming through the media, through all of what we have on Netflix all night, support for learning and equity. Engagement is one that many principals tell us isn't necessarily their strength. That's getting the support of parents and the community to buy into this whole process of change. We do have a lot of parents who want schools to look just like they did for them, and we're talking about a very different kind of school for a very different kind of purpose. Around all of these, it's absolutely mandatory that we have professional learning. Professional learning of ourselves as leaders, our staff, and of the whole community in understanding what kind of learning we're trying to drive. And you know, without that, pedagogy, technology, space, support, and engagement without the professional learning may just be a disaster if that ball actually dropped. And the key driver for all of this, using Fullen's term, is about staffing. These are for new staff we hire and for leadership development. So as you think about instructional leadership and the opportunities that we have to really create schools that are not just places young people go to watch their students work, but dynamic learning environments that are promoting learning and equity for all, then we might have to reconsider that all of these balls have to be up in the air. I've deliberately squeezed myself in and around all of these things and trying to juggle pedagogy, technology, space, support, engagement, staffing, professional learning. And you can see how we do this, that the instructional leader's job is actually to have all these going at the same time, which is a pretty daunting thing to do. But it does overcome the simplistic kind of mantra, which would say, well, let's just do a walkthrough, or let's just do formal visits, or let's just get the principal out more. Actually, the principal's job is to drive all of these balls in the air at the same time, but to paint them in a slightly different way for your school. Each of these, if they were colors in the wheel, we might just make it look a little different in your school than it might in mine. If we keep the vision that we're trying to design schools to enable success of all, then trying to work inside a pedagogy, technology space, support, engagement, staffing, and professional learning might give you a way to have a few new opportunities to think about your plans for next year and the year beyond, but also to be really excited about why we need you to help drive this change. Because this takes a unique, very clever, very patient, but very, very, very forceful leader for the future, because this vision isn't easy to get there, and all of our children cannot afford for another generation to be under or uneducated. So as we work with you on these concepts, I hope you'll be able to see that moving from old school to new school is also a bit of a juggling act, so we better get our balls in the air and keep seeing if we can catch them, because not any of these can actually drop on our watch. Thanks for listening. I hope this is helpful in framing where we are as instructional leaderships to build a better Australia. Thank you.